Team India has almost won the gold medal at the Chess Olympiad 2024 in the open section. If you are watching this in the future, chances are India would have won the medal. So in that case, high five and congratulations. At the point of recording this, there is still one round to go, and there is a hypothetical chance that India may not win. But I think, the gold medal is in the bag. Anyway, I want to show you the most important match, I think, of this Olympiad. India is taking on United States, and United States is the #1 seed. It is the best team on the paper at the Olympiad. India, by the way, is #2. Okay. So USA has players who are, all of them are like legends. You take Caruana, Arjun, Wesley So, Dominguez, all of them legends, all of them capable of beating anyone on their day, even Magnus Carlsen, anyone. And I want to take you on this entire journey of how this India versus US match transpired, because there were a lot of interesting storylines and it didn't honestly start very well for India. Okay, so yeah, without wasting any further time, let's get started. So the first game I want to show you is between Gukesh playing with the white pieces versus Fabiano Caruana, the machine, the calculator, and the current world #2. Okay, so we have this Catalan opening on the board after g3 bishop g2. This is the Catalan opening, and now both players are following opening theory. Of course, both of them are very well prepared, and I'll quickly go through the opening phase, and we get to this position where black short castles. Now, the thing with the Catalan opening is that white usually has a slight pull, a slight, advantage, since he's the one who plays first. However, black is always very, very close to equalizing. And exactly this is what happens. Gukesh now goes knight d2, opening the diagonal for this bishop and putting pressure on this d5 pawn. Okay, so you see white has a small pull here. Fabi goes knight e7, attacks the, keeps this d5 pawn protected. Gukesh plays e3. And now he's threatening to go c4 and bring more pressure on this pawn, and also at the same time get rid of this awkward pawn on c3. It's kind of a backward pawn on c3. Fabiano plays bishop e6, says Gukesh, you can't go c4 because now I have a bishop that is also keeping an eye on the c4 square. Gukesh is like, okay, let me get my queen out, and now what are you gonna do about this pawn? Fabi says, okay, I'll play a6. Now Gukesh can't go c4 because if you take, there is this move b5, forking the queen and the knight. So Gukesh would lose the knight. That is not how it works. That's why after this c4 is not possible, but instead Gukesh decides he's going to attack this d5 pawn and attack the black center with the move e4. He switches the side. He switches the attack from the other side. Now Fabiano plays c5. Okay, and if you notice, Fabiano is trying to increase the tension in the position. This is often what strong players do. There is a very, very well-known principle in chess that you should always strive and try to increase the tension in the position. Okay, so there was this tension in the board. Fabiano introduces more tension with the move c5. Now Gukesh plays queen a3, attacks this pawn. You would be tempted to capture here. However, it's not good because after e5, you kind of drop this e7 knight. Okay, so very hidden idea with queen a3 Gukesh has. Fabi plays the move b6. This protects this pawn and keeps this tension. Gukesh plays rook a b1. There is once again a lot of tension here. None of them is exchanging anything. Fabi plays rook f8. Finally defends this knight, and now c into d4 could be a threat. So Gukesh decides to take this c5 pawn. Fabiano now plays the move d4 and kind of, creates a complicated position. At this point, Arjun had got a slightly better position. He wasn't winning, but he had got a slightly better position. Prag was on board #2. Prag versus Wesley So was happening, and Prag was under a little bit of pressure. Board 4, we had Vidit taking on Aronian, and Vidit had kind of an equal position. Okay, so I guess because of that, Fabi wanted to create complications, because if USA doesn't win this match, they are not getting a shot at the gold medal. Gukesh plays c4, keeps the center closed. Fabi now plays queen to g5. Very nice move, attacking the knight and at the same time hitting this pawn on g5. Pawn on c5, pardon. Gukesh plays rook fd1, says I'm going to protect my knight. Fabi says okay, thank you, I'll take this c5 pawn. Gukesh says okay, now I'll go f4 and attack your queen. Where is your queen going? Queen h5. Now Gukesh plays f5, attacks this bishop, and if this bishop goes away, he's going to take this pawn and he's not going to take the pawn, sorry, he's going to play knight f3 first, and now he's going to take this c5 pawn and say thank you very much. Now my queen is ready to just invade on your queen side. But there is a reason why Fabiano is known as a human machine and a fantastic calculator. In most cases, he manages to come up with the best moves. Fabi finds the best move rook into b1, and like a machine, he doesn't retreat this bishop. He goes for the move queen to e2. The point is, this queen creates counterplay and a lot of trouble for white here. So white has to kind of deal with this nuisance. Gukesh plays fe6. Fabi grabs the knight. There comes ef7 check. King f7 by Fabi. Queen c5. Yes, Gukesh has won a pawn. However, there is now this passer for black that can keep marching forward. And there is one pair of piece less to stop this d pawn from moving forward. King g8 played by Fabi. Gukesh plays the move rook f1, brings this rook on the open file, tries to get something going, some attack going on the f file. King at 7, very very nice move by Fabi, getting this king away from any sort of attacks near the f file. Queen e5 played. Now there is a threat to go rook f7, okay, and it looks very scary for Fabiano. Rook f7, suddenly there is a threat of checkmate on g7. Around this time, Wesley had started to get a small advantage against Prag on board number 2. Arjun was clearly better, and it looked like Arjun's victory would come before Wesley's advantage against Prag would go further. However, that's not what happened. You will soon discover what happened. So queen e5 was played. Now Fabi gives queen e3 check, asking the king where it is going. The king drops and Fabi plays d3. Once again, this is the best sequence. Fabiano is not worried of rook f7 because he has a counter-attacking idea to defend against this checkmate threat with the move after bishop f1 to play rook g8, not d2. Okay, otherwise there would be checkmate. Defends this pawn, and if you take here, there is suddenly d2 and there is a queen that is going to happen here, giving black a completely winning position. So Fabi is, once again, he proves why he's able to find the best moves even when he's put under pressure. d3 happens, bishop h3 played. Now this bishop is trying to come into the game. Gukesh is trying to get this bishop into the game. d2, this pawn is getting closer to becoming a queen. Once again, the best move. Gukesh also finds the best move with bishop g4. Queen d3 comes, attacking the rook, and at the same time, it's also helping the pawn push forward. Now Gukesh brings his king forward, protects the rook. d1 cannot be played yet because there is always this rook and bishop guarding that square. So Fabi decides, okay, let me munch this c4 pawn. The position has kind of equalized, the engine shows that there is no advantage for black. And at this point, I was observing the game and I was kind of getting worried because Pragnananda actually had a, huge minus against Wesley. So Arjun, yes, he had an advantage, but it wasn't clear how he was going to win. And at one point, I thought maybe Arjun's opponent had managed to create a fortress. So yeah, this was worrying, and this game of Gukesh looks completely equal. Now he plays a4, and in this position, Fabi could have grabbed this a4 pawn, but chances are he was worried that he could get under an attack after rook f7 since there is a mate here, rook g8, queen e7. However, he's always able to create a draw after takes and takes. But this is not what Fabi went for, because I think it's not easy even for someone who is very good at calculation to allow so much counterplay against his own king. So here Fabi decides to go queen to c6, gets this queen near to the king. Gukesh plays queen d4, nice move, centralizing the queen, not only keeping an eye here, also keeping an eye on this nasty little pawn that's running everywhere. Queen g6 played, and this was a mistake. Right now, both the players had like very little time on their clock. Gukesh had a minute, Fabi had like 3 minutes. So it's kind of hard to find the best move when you have very, very little time on the clock. You simply don't have enough time to calculate. And that is often a weakness of Fabiano. In classical, if you see, he does very well. Whereas in shorter time controls, he doesn't do that well compared to classical. And many speculate that it's because his game relies on calculation, where he takes more time to make decisions, but he makes good decisions. But you cannot do that in a shorter time control. So maybe that's what we see here. Queen g6 played. Now Gukesh has to find the only move to keep his advantage, and he does. He plays the move rook f4. He defends this pawn. Queen g5 happens. Now once again he finds the only move to keep his advantage, h4, asking the queen what the queen is doing here. The queen drops back to g6, and now Gukesh finally grabs the d2 pawn. So Gukesh is a pawn up. However, it's still not easy to win this position. considering that, there is a person who is a well-known defender. The thing with top players like Fabiano or anyone in the top 10, you say, it's very, very hard to defeat them. You can't be like, you get some advantage against them and they are going to collapse. They will always keep fighting and they will always keep creating chances where they can save the position. And Fabiano tries to do something like that with rook b8. Okay, now this rook is threatening maybe to come to b1 and start some attack near this white king. Gukesh, however, very calmly, he goes queen d7, attacks the knight. Okay, looks very scary since, this rook can invade from here on. Fabi plays h5, attacks the bishop. Gukesh once again gets his bishop forward to e6. And it looks like, white is getting his pieces away from his king. However, the point is this bishop is actually defending here, while at the same time it's attacking here. Fabi plays rook b6, trying to put some sort of resistance. Gukesh plays bishop f7. And by this point, move number 40 was reached. However, when this position was reached, Pragnananda had actually lost his game against Wesley So. So Team USA had a 1-0 lead against India. Gukesh was winning, although he still had to convert this position into a win against the world number 2. Not an easy task. Arjun, yes, he had an advantage, but he hadn't made significant progress. Okay, whereas Vidit's game against Aronian was equal. So it looked like everything depended on this game, and it was very important for Gukesh to win here. So bishop f7 played. Now comes queen d6. And move number 40 is reached. Both players now get 30 extra minutes for the rest of the game. And after they are out of the time pressure, Gukesh was able to find some very, very nice move after rook d6, queen d6, rook d6, bishop takes h5. White has 2 extra pawns here. And most importantly, he has a bishop against a knight. And if you have seen that Arjun versus Sanan endgame, the rook, where there was again a rook and the knight and a bishop endgame, we saw how the bishop loves when there are pawns on 2 sides of the board. So bishop h5 played, knight c6, Gukesh goes bishop e2, a5, saves this pawn, Fabiano, and after bishop b5 there comes knight e5, rook f5, rook e6, king f2. In this position, for some reason, Fabiano resigned. Although I thought it would have been better for him to keep playing, but maybe he realizes that this is kind of a hopeless position to defend. With that, Gukesh scored an important victory. Now it all comes down to Arjun's game. Arjun is playing on board number 3 against Dominguez Leinier, a grandmaster originally from Cuba who now represents the US. And the game starts after d4, d5 and c4, c6. We have the Slav opening on the board. Knight f3 played by Arjun, knight f6, knight c3, a6. All of this is standard theory till a few moves. And we get this position. Now Arjun plays knight a4, asks this queen what she is doing. So the queen has to run back. Now he plays g3. And there is a very interesting idea. You may think it's to develop the bishop, but it's not. Black goes e6. Now Arjun goes bishop f4. And this is the point of playing g3. So that this pawn keeps the bishop protected and gives a square for the bishop to attack the queen. Black also smartly inserts his bishop in the middle. And now Arjun plays e3. At first when I saw this move, I didn't understand the logic behind it. Because, it kind of is not good if, let's say, you have a pawn here and you have a bishop on the outside. But as it turns out, one of the ideas of this move is so that if black ever captures on f4, there are going to be 2 pawns that are going to clamp down on this important e5 square and not allow a break like e5. Okay, so a very important move, e3. a5 played by black, hoping to at some point get this bishop to a6. For example, if you go bishop g2, boom, this bishop is very happy to come to a6. So that's not what Arjun plays. Instead, he goes rook c1 first, gets the rook on a semi-open file, always a good thing to do. Black short castles, Arjun plays queen c2, bishop b7 played to protect this c6 pawn. Now Arjun plays bishop d3, gets this bishop on a nice diagonal. Black plays h6, gets the pawn away from the bishop and the queen's battery range here. And white decides to short castle. Arjun castles, gets his king to safety. And once again, if you notice, after 15 moves, Arjun has managed to bring all his pieces into the game. Very, very good from, a perspective of how to develop your pieces in the opening. Short castle played, black plays rook f8. And black now is trying to push for one break. Arjun goes rook f8 and black goes e5. This is the break that black was preparing for with the move rook f8. Now, since that there is one more piece that is defending this e5 pawn. Arjun takes, and now he goes knight d4. Now in this position, Dominguez makes a small inaccuracy with the move knight to d3, and this gives Arjun an advantage. Okay, he plays the move bishop into d6, queen into d6, and rook into d3. And when these moves were played over the board, Arjun was the only one who had the advantage. All the other boards, board number 1 with Gukesh, board number 2 with Prague, board number 4 with Vidit and Aronian, all of them were more or less close to equality. Bishop a6 played by Dominguez, attacking the rook. Now the rook went to b3, trying to invade from this b file. Black has this weak pawns here that are always under pressure. It's not so easy for Black to untangle his weaknesses, to get out of it. However, there is a reason why Dominguez, is a 2750 grandmaster, and he finds the best move in the position. He finds a very, very nice resource. He goes knight to d7. The point is, now you cannot take this c6 pawn because this allows this beautiful move rook a8, sacrificing the queen. You may think that, okay, this queen is free, but boom, there is this check, king moves, check. And if this line were to happen, like this king kind of ends up getting hunted down and checkmated, like somehow like this. The king just ends, getting checkmated. If this would have happened, it would have been terrible news for India. But of course, Arjun is not someone who's going to fall for, such kind of tricks. Arjun thought for some time, which is very unusual. And, as usual, Arjun was not looking at the chessboard when he was calculating. He played the move knight to b6. Okay, after looking here and there and calculating all lines. I don't know where he sees his pieces, by the way. He plays knight b6. Black plays c5, the best move in the position. The point is, yes, Black loses the material, but Black is saying to Arjun, okay, I have lost an exchange, but anyway, I think my position was slightly bad. So, okay, you can keep the exchange, but now I have a dangerous idea. Some point in the future, once your rook, let's say, runs away, my bishop can go here, I can play d4, and your light squares are kind of very weak. So maybe I have some compensation there. Can be very dangerous. Knight b5 played by Arjun. Now there comes the move queen to c6. Arjun plays a4 and Dominguez plays the move g6. Now Arjun goes rook c3, putting pressure on this c5 pawn. Dominguez here plays bishop to b5. A b5, queen b5 happens. Rook d1, attacking this pawn, queen c6. And in a few moves, Arjun, by the way, plays very well here. He goes e4. Knight e4, you cannot take d4. Let me know why Black cannot take d4 in the comments. Okay, there is a very simple move for white. Black goes knight e4, and that is met with rook d5. Rook e8 played by Dominguez. Arjun goes here rook d8, and now knight g5. And this looks very dangerous on the first glance. Just to show you, let's say white plays the move rook d2. There is this check, and boom, Arjun is lost. So you see there are some weak light squares near the white king. But Arjun is not going to fall for that. He played rook e8, queen e8 and goes queen to d3. Knight e6. When I first saw this position, I thought that this was some kind of a fortress. Fortress is basically a position that is not hard, that is just not possible to win. Okay, this knight very nicely protects this c5 pawn. Yes, white has an extra rook, but it's not clear where is a weakness to attack Black. Yes, you can maybe win this pawn, but how is this pawn ever going to become a queen? Since there is always this b4 c5 pawn that is stopping this from going forward, and the c5 pawn is very nicely guarded by the knight. Arjun plays the move queen e3. He attacks this pawn h5, and by this point, Prague was actually having a bad position, and bestly so, Prague's opponent on board number 2 had a big advantage. So it was important that Arjun finds some way to break through this position. h5 was played. Now there comes rook d6, putting more pressure here. Queen b5. This queen is getting active. Queen e5 played, protecting the pawn. Also kind of keeping an eye on this important e1 square, and also keeping an eye on h8 near this Black king. h4 played by Black. And now there is a chance of something dangerous happening against the white king. If white goes king g2 here, already there is a lot of trouble for white. There comes h3 check, king h3, and there comes queen f1 check. You can play king h4, but queen f2. Suddenly, this Black queen is getting very, very active near the white king. Okay, and this is often what could happen in, let's say, some games. You can very easily miss a chance and give your opponent a lot of counterplay. And these top level players, they often need just one chance to get inside the position and to take an advantage, or to make a draw. This would not be good. So Arjun didn't play king g2. Instead, he showed why he is the current world number 4, and soon he's gonna cross 2800, which I hope so. He plays g into h4 here, the best move in the position. Black goes queen c4, keeps an eye on the pawn, and Arjun goes h5. The main point for Arjun here is he wants to somehow to exchange these pawns and expose this king. Queen g4 check, king moves, and now black goes g5. Black wants to keep the position close so that his king feels safe. Now h6 played by Arjun. Okay, and at some point there could be ideas like rook e6, since this knight is guarding the g7 square, and after f e6 there can be a mate on g7. Black plays the move king h7 and very nicely sets a very cunning trap. If you go rook e6 now, black is not going to play f e6 and allow this checkmate. Okay, this is the thing with top players, they will not make these kind of errors. Black is going to do queen h3 check, check the king, and once you go to e2, he is going to take this rook on e6. And you cannot give this checkmate here because this is kind of a pin. Okay, so very, very nice, clever, and a subtle trap. So subtle, so subtle. So that's why in this position, after king h7, Arjun doesn't fall for it. He goes rook d7. Fantastic defense from black. Black is always posing a lot of questions for white, making it as hard as possible for white to win. Queen c4 check, king e1. At this point, I think the result between Gukesh and Caruana had come out. Gukesh had won. Prag had lost. On board number 4, Vidit's game was still going on. Aronian was trying to press against Vidit. However, the position was pretty much under control, and it was pretty much likely that that game would end in a draw. But it was very important for Arjun to find a breakthrough here. Queen b4 check happened next. Now Arjun played rook d2, gets the rook in the middle and protects, shields this white king from any more checks. Queen g4 happens, the queen tries to invade from the other side. Arjun plays rook e2, queen g1 check, and now there is an escape hatch for the king to d2. Black plays king to g6, and now Arjun has to once again find the only move to increase his advantage, and he finds it. He plays the move h4. Very, very nice move. As I told you, the point is white wants to get rid of black's pawn cover here. After queen e4 check, king h6, queen into h4 happened, king g6, and there comes queen g3 check. Very, very nice technique from Arjun. If you want to play an endgame, if you want to understand when to transition into an endgame, this is a very good example. Okay, because white knows once this black queen gets traded off, which is what happens in the game, it's much easier to win this position without the queens on the board. King g5 happened, rook e3, king g4, and king e2. Dominguez goes knight g5, trying to create counterplay. Now, how would you play in this position with white? It is one thing to get a winning position. It's another thing to convert a winning position into a win. And I really like how Arjun plays from now on and doesn't give his opponent any chance to come back into the match. First, he goes rook to e5. Very nice move. He's preventing king into g3 by counter attacking. Like black would lose the knight. So black cannot play that. So black plays, okay, I'll play f5. Now Arjun takes the pawn. Black pushes a4. Now, there are two ways to win this a4 pawn. You can either win it like this, or you can either win it like this. How would you win it? That's a question. I can bet that 50% of you would have said rook c4 check. It's a check, it's a forcing move, so it's a good idea to win the pawn like that. But the problem is this is not very accurate, because you allow king g3, take, and now f4. And suddenly you see this pawn starts to roll, and it could get very tricky for white here. It could get tricky. So Arjun instead in this position plays the move rook to a5. Very nice move. And the point is, if you ever take here, there is rook f5. Next move, the rook is coming here, and the rook is going to capture the pawn. You see, these little small moves, they make a very, very big difference when you don't want to give your opponent any chance to come back into the game. Super important. Try to be as precise as possible when you're playing chess. So a4 was played. Arjun goes rook a5. Fantastic move. Knight h3. And now once again Arjun plays the move rook into a4 check. King into g3. Once again, many of you would be tempted to play b4. but that is not the right move because it allows knight f4 check. Although yeah, you are still in a winning position, but you know, this pawn, you always have to worry about this pawn becoming a queen. So that's why after king to g3, Arjun finds the cleanest way to victory. He goes rook a3 check, king moves, and just chops off this knight. And after king takes, he goes king f3. And in this position, the problem for black is that this pawn is just gonna run and become a queen, while his king is just very far away from action. So in this position, Dominguez resigned, and finally Arjun won the game. So Gukesh won. For America, Wesley So won on board number 2, and Arjun won for India on board number 3. So India got like a 2-1 lead, and the last game ended in a draw. So India ended up defeating the United States, the best team on paper, 2.5, 1.5, and almost clinched the gold medal. And to put this victory in context, this is like winning the 2011 Cricket World Cup. I have no more words. Thank you.